Hello, my name is Kate Hudson Hall, and thank you for listening to Bulimia Sucks, because many of us know it does. Now, this is a platform for people to share relatable and uplifting and inspiring conversations based on an eating disorder. And episodes include sometimes personal stories of where people are now and their difficult journeys and their steps taken into recovery. And then also to professionals also who work with people with eating disorders. So my book, Bulimia Sucks, the audiobook, is now live on Audible and Amazon and iTunes. So if you would be interested and would like a free copy of this, then if you email me at katehudsonhall@gmail.com, and I can send you the code, and then you can download it for free, and then let me know what you think. And also, we have recently launched the Bulimia Sucks digital pack. Now, this is a combination of all sorts of goodies in this pack. So, for example, it's got the whole of the Bulimia Sucks course, which incorporates teaching videos and tables and different tools and techniques. Also the book Bulimia Sucks in a PDF form. The Bulimia Sucks hypnosis MP3 download to work with your unconscious side, and a support ebook for family and friends, and also a relaxation recording, a 20-minute recording, and to help you to really start to relax. And also access to the private Facebook group for ongoing support. And then also regular live Q&A sessions with myself. So if you would like to know more, if you go to bulimiasucks.com, all the information is in there. Now, I'm very excited today. Our guest today is Melissa Rohlfs. And she is a certified holistic health and life coach, helping busy women break free from what prevents them from being their authentic selves, so they can be calm, confident, and healthy around food and around sugar, and also around what triggers them in stressful situations, in their bodies, in their life. And Melissa is committed to empowering women to find freedom and feel empowered in their own skin. So after her own tumultuous history with food, when at times she restricted and then later in life binged, she learned how to deal with the core issues around her broken relationship with food, and learn how to process her feelings rather than stuff them down with food. As a result, she felt called to go to school and learn to teach other women how to do the same. And so she is now a holistic health and life coach, and is the proud owner of Free to Be Coaching. Oh, we want to hear about that. So welcome, Melissa. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Kate. I'm so excited to be here, and I love the work that you're doing.
Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. So now, do you have a funny story that you could share with us?
Gosh, I have lots of funny stories. Which
Oh,
one should I pick?
you?
I feel like I just fall into funny stories. Like I just feel like I show up as myself, and you just don't know what you're going to get. You don't know what's going to come out of my mouth. You don't know what I'm going to do. Like, I just feel like I'm kind of a walking funny story.
They just happen naturally.
I think so, much to my family's embarrassment.
Oh, the family are proud.
Oh, yes.
Of this one skill. So anything specific you can think of?
Oh, gosh. I mean, I think probably my most embarrassing moment would be in high school when I was walking across the bleachers at a game and I was looking at the boy that I had a crush on. And because I wasn't watching where I was going, I ended up missing a step and rolling down the bleachers into the band director during like the song that they were playing. That was kind of fun. And I had a bright red sweatshirt, of course. So everybody in the gym saw me because it wasn't just like I blended in. It was like this bright color flying down the bleachers.
Oh, yes, that's slightly embarrassing, isn't it?
Really embarrassing. And I got bruised too. Like it wasn't like I like left unscathed. Like I had wounds too.
Oh, dear. I bet it wasn't funny at the time for you.
No.
No.
It
No.
is now and I can laugh, but my goodness.
Oh, gosh. So, Melissa, now let's begin when you first, I suppose, became aware of restricting your food when you were younger.
I think I became aware in high school when I was rolling down the bleachers. I think because it was just such a time in life where your body is growing and changing and you're developing. And I think I became very aware of people around me. I became aware of what, the opposite sex was looking for in someone. And I think I was so out of control in every area of my life that for me, I could control what I would eat or not eat. And so for me, that behavior started in high school. And I think it was a form of control.
Okay, so what do you mean by everything else was out of control in your life at that time?
I had childhood trauma. And I think for me, Kate, like even going back to childhood, I remember being a little girl and hiding cookies and candies and just lots of sugary treats in my bedroom. Because I was using the food to kind of self-soothe and comfort. Had kind of a hostile home environment, if you will. My dad died when I was 2. So just a lot of unresolved trauma and hurt that I hadn't worked through. And I think food kind of became my coping mechanism, whether it was to stuff or whether it was to withhold and try to look for that control because everything around me was out of control.
And do you think your father dying when you were 2?
Mm-hmm.
So do you think that had, a very strong effect on your behavior overall and around food?
That's a good question. And looking back, I would suspect yes, because I was missing that validation and that presence and that affirmation from my father. And so I think for me, I would look for it in boys in high school. And I think absolutely that is a piece of the puzzle for sure.
You see, my father died when I was 2, so that's why I asked the question. I wanted to hear what your view was, and I think that's really interesting, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't, and I don't know whether you did. I don't remember my father,
Mm-hmm.
but it was the after effects and the connection that I had with my mother, which was so deep.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very, it was very important for me to forever nurture her and take care of her, because I vaguely remember her just crying the whole time,
Mm-hmm.
which is, good, but also I think that is a sort of, that's something there that's connected to my behaviors as I get older.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I think when you lose someone, you can't control that. I mean, you and I can't control the fact that we didn't have the opportunity to know our dad, and that left a huge hole in our lives.
Mm, mm, mm. Yes. Anyway, I do often think about that, but not having that father figure,
Mm-hmm.
even though I don't consciously feel I missed out, there is part of me that does think, I I do often think, oh, I wonder how my life would have been different. And that validation, that male figure validation really resonates.
Well, and I don't know if you feel this way, Kate, but I also feel like this whole piece of you is missing. I remember growing up and people would say, oh, you look so much like your mom. You remind me so much of your mom. And I think subconsciously I would think, is that because my dad is gone and you don't know? Like, it just left this big question mark of what qualities of his do I have? Like, what pieces of him are in me that I'm not even aware of because I don't know who he is.
So, Melissa, moving on to that, the validation from a male figure when you're a teenager. So what did that mean for you?
I was boy crazy. Girl, I was like boy crazy. Yep.
But aren't most teenage girls sort of very excitable?
Yes, but I think I had that added layer on top of it.
Okay.
And I had to look a certain way and I had to, show up a certain way. And I had to very much mimic like what I saw on TV and in magazines because I wanted to like be it.
So that strive to be perfect. And, I suppose it's all connected to your weight.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And when you see what other people around you look like, because remember, I had been like eating these sugary treats like from childhood. And so I like really didn't have a good relationship with food at all. So I went from one extreme of being over here and hoarding all of the food and not liking my body to totally the other end of the spectrum. And I'm not going to eat. And then maybe I'll like my body. Maybe then I'll get some attention.
Right. And did that work for you?
Kind of.
And then that's where the confusion comes in, isn't it?
Totally.
And so what did you do after that?
I just continued in the vicious cycle. Like it worked. I got the goal. I got the guy. And I think, I felt this pressure to be a certain weight, stay a certain size, had to work out. I had to do all of these things to stay this way to keep the guy. And then I went to college and we broke up. And then I went like back. Well, I had jaw surgery. This is kind of a weird story. I had jaw surgery my freshman year of college. So my mouth was wired shut for 8 weeks and I had to do a liquid diet. And I remember getting so much like approval and validation because of course I lost weight being on this liquid diet. And people are like, oh my gosh, you look so good. You look, that's a good look for you. And so I think that also told me, oh, well, I need to be a certain size and weight to get.
So it's helping to reinforce that part of you. Thinks, right, I've got to be, this slim.
Yes.
To be able to get that validation. Yeah.
Yep.
Which of course, when we're in that, on that roller coaster, we don't recognize any of this, do we?
Not at all. And it was never about health. It was always about weight and what I look like.
Yeah. And so did that carry on then for a number of years?
Carried on for a few years. And then I went back like my senior year of college to being stressed out and overwhelmed. And I was, eating bags of chips in college at a time. I went like I was one side or the other. There was no middle. It was withholding or eating all the things. And so the eating all the things continued from my senior year in college until after I was married and had kids. And then I'm like, this needs to stop.
And what do you think brought you to that point where, you finally said this needs to stop?
It was it wasn't about the weight. It was about, we had a newborn baby who wasn't sleeping, so I was exhausted. We had a 2-year-old who had some undiagnosed food allergies and some sensory challenges. So that was a tricky situation. My husband was traveling for work And I had been meeting with a therapist, and she diagnosed me with PTSD from childhood trauma. So that, all of that combined led me to say, okay, something needs to change. I started meeting with a naturopath and really learning about healing my body from the inside out. And that, in combination with the therapist, I think were the game changers for me, because they made me realize that I was worth taking care of, that I mattered. If I wanted to be the wife and mom to my kids that I wanted to be, I had to do something. I didn't want to model for them what I came from. And that's where I was headed.
And what do you, well, so firstly, what do you feel you learned from the naturopath?
Gosh, I learned about the impact of food and vitamins and minerals. Like, I learned about health and how to nourish my body and how to take care of my body and how to listen to my body and how to figure out what my body was saying to me, because I'd never been taught that. It was all about attaining a certain size. And so for me to shift from size to listening and nourishing was a complete game changer.
So what does that mean, listening to what your body was telling you?
It's honoring my hunger and fullness and listening to when it's hungry. It's acknowledging that there are foods that don't agree with me. I can't do wheat, I can't do dairy, because I feel like junk when I eat them. But I think that's what I grew up on, that's what I came from. So I just thought it was normal to have a hurt stomach all of the time, and it was normal to be anxious, and it was normal to be stressed and overwhelmed and have your palms sweat. Like, I didn't realize any of that could have been impacted by what I was eating.
Okay, so tell us what you restricted first, what changes you noticed, what foods you cut out, the wheat or
Yeah, it was, so I remember with our daughter, we discovered she couldn't do gluten and dairy. And then I said to my husband, well, this came from somewhere, probably came from me. So I went through the testing, and it was gluten and dairy as well. I also, after that, cut out sugar. I cut out processed foods and started eating more whole foods in their natural form. And was really amazed at how good I felt. Like, I had more energy. The brain fog was gone. I was happy. It was a complete shift on everything. But again, with that, Kate, I lost weight. And so people were commenting, oh my gosh, what did you do to lose weight? And I'm like, you are praising my weight loss, and I'm telling you how good I feel. Like, this has changed my life. Like, I don't care what size I am. I care that I feel good and I'm energetic and I'm showing up in the world like I want to.
wow.
See, more connection, more confusion.
Yeah. Wow. So you finally understood that actually, you telling me, wow, how good I look, having lost the weight is not what's helping me right now.
Yep.
It's how good I
I
feel
didn't even
from the
know I had
inside
lost
out.
weight. Totally. Totally. I didn't even know I had lost weight. I was like, what? What are you talking about? I mean, I wasn't on the radar. And maybe that's because that wasn't what I was looking for in that moment. I was more focused on healing and becoming the best version of myself. Maybe it had nothing to do with the weight at that time.
Yeah. And at that time, that's when you worked through your childhood trauma as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you learn how to start to tune into your feelings.
Mm-hmm. And express them instead of
And
them.
express them. And how did you learn to do that?
Through trial and error. I mean, I think it was finding a safe place to share what I was really thinking and feeling. Because I think another coping mechanism that I developed was this chameleon personality of being who people wanted me to be and saying what they wanted me to say and just stuffing what I really felt and thought. And so I was finding a safe place to really share what I thought and felt and be accepted and loved and not judged. And that's a hard thing to do in the world today, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that, being a chameleon, because that's what it would kind of feel like. And trying to put on that that face, I suppose.
Yep. I called it the mask before we were required to wear them, but
Yeah. But for me, I just would never talk about how I felt. Oh, yes. I was very good at that. Just didn't tell anyone. Not
because then they
healthy.
can't get mad at you. They can't hurt you, like that's I
Can't
think what
judge
we,
me.
yeah, yep.
But then also I didn't know how to tune into my feelings, and I didn't know how to talk. Didn't know how to talk about my feelings. And my friend, when I was in my 20s, and my friend said to me, "Oh, so well, how come out of all of us, a big group of us that were friends, so how come you're the only one that never talks about her feelings?" And I remember her telling me that, and I think because I was so baffled and did not understand what on earth she was talking about. And I was like, I don't know what you mean. I talk about my feeling. Didn't even know what a feeling was. I was yeah.
It's almost like a disconnect, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Completely shut off.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what else do you, from that time and your time with the therapist and the learnings, what else did you learn at that time?
Gosh, so much. I mean, it was almost like a retraining myself and everything that I thought and how I viewed the world. I think the biggest thing I learned, this came later when I went to coaching school, but to replace judgment with curiosity. Um, Gosh, if I had known that how many years ago, it would have been a big game changer. But I think we learn things when we need to learn them.
When we're ready to learn them.
Yes, that's true. Because maybe I had heard that and I was like, whatever, I'm not judgmental. I was. More so towards myself, probably, actually.
Yes. And I think that's a very good point, isn't it? We are very judgmental of ourselves. And we could learn to loosen that rein, that pattern, because it just causes more stress, more anxiety, more
Keeps
pressure.
us stuck.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, Melissa, so if you could turn back the clock, what would you say to that younger you that would help her to, before, I suppose, before the restriction of the foods, what would you say to her that could maybe avoid her from taking that path?
I would tell her that she mattered, that she was worth taking care of, and that people, the people that you want in your life are people who are going to love and value you for who you are, regardless of what you look like, what size you are, what shape you are. Like they like you for who you are as a person. And if they don't like you for that, then you probably don't really want them in your life because you have value and you matter. And if they can't see that,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So tell us about where you are now after all your learnings.
I feel like I am finally in a good place with food and my body and health. And again, I know how to listen to my body. I feed it when it's hungry. I exercise because I like how it makes me feel, not because it's punishment or because I ate too many cookies. It's my philosophy has totally changed, and that this is worth taking care of. For me to show up and serve my family and the world in the way that I want to, I've got to take care of this. And that's by what I eat. That's by moving. That's by getting enough sleep. It's not the abusive behaviors towards it that I used to have.
Wow. And so after you came out the other side, you decided that you wanted to become a life coach. So you went and trained and did that. And then and now how does your program work?
It's a 12-week Finding Freedom program where we really work on habits, because that's where it all starts, right? Like your beliefs create your thoughts, which create your actions, which creates your habits. So we've got to look at that belief and see maybe where the lie came in, maybe where there was a hurt or a wound. And so how do we work through that to change our belief about ourselves, to change our thoughts, to change our action, to have healthy habits that serve us and allow us to show up as we want to show up instead of punishing ourselves or negative self-talk or thinking we're not good enough or being that chameleon that I talked about earlier.
Yeah. So give us an example of a belief and how you would work through that.
Yeah, I think one that I hear a lot, Kate, is I just need to eat the right things and I need to exercise, and then I will look and feel how I want to feel. And I think we have minimized everything that goes into who we are, right? Because we've been told that you have to do this, X plus Y equals Z. But that's not true, because one size doesn't fit all, and what works for one doesn't work for all.
Yeah, we're not
So
all
it's
the
really,
same.
no, not at all. And yet here we are promoting that. So it's really teaching women how to listen to their bodies and listen to what they need instead of following this strict plan that doesn't even work for them, because maybe their season of life or their stage of life or their food intolerances or their stress level, like it's not a cookie cutter.
Yeah. 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 So is it is the majority of your program, is it based on learning to tune into your body and tuning into the hunger? And how do you when you talk to people about that, how do you begin to teach them how to do that?
Yeah, so we have a whole session on how to honor hunger and fullness and what that looks like, how to listen to your body, kind of what the sensation feels like when you are hungry or you are full. Because I think we get so caught up in our busy society that we just eat until either our plate is clean because we have the belief that we need to clean our plate,
Yes.
or we do the opposite and, oh, well, I'm withholding or restricting, so I'm only going to eat half. And then an hour later, we're starving, but we don't want to eat because we have the mindset that I need to withhold to lose weight. So it's really about teaching them what hunger and fullness looks like, how to honor that in yourself. Because I think if we are mindful and we're present when we're eating, we know when we're full. Like we know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I think we get caught up in the chips and salsa are in front of us, or I'm watching a show and I'm just mindlessly eating, and we're not in tune with our bodies. So it's really kind of teaching them how to tune into their bodies, and also what foods work for them and how foods maybe give them energy or take energy away. Because again, it's different for everybody.
Yeah. I presume you talk about processed foods and how the body doesn't really know how to digest those so well. So it's not really going to work for the body. Eating fresh, healthy foods, the body knows how to digest that.
And I think even though there isn't one size that fits all, that's a great baseline.
Absolutely.
And then figure out which foods work. I had a client that she couldn't do pineapple. And you would think, oh, pineapple is clean, it's healthy, it's whole, it's natural, but it didn't work for her body. So it's the whole food is a really good baseline, but then tune into which foods work with your body.
Yeah. And then I suppose experimenting.
Totally. It's all experimentation. And it's another thing we haven't been taught. We just eat what we eat because we grew up eating that, or that's what everybody else is eating. And yeah, if you can make it kind of a game where you're curious and you're like trial and error, it can be kind of fun.
Yeah.
Kind of gives you some freedom because there's no rules.
Yeah. And then also with regards to tuning into that feeling of being hungry, it's like, we were brought up to, oh, it's breakfast time. We've got to have breakfast. Oh, let's have a nice big cake at break time. And then, oh, it's 1 o'clock. Everybody, it's lunchtime, even though we're not tuning into our body. tuning in, seeing how hungry we are for the actual food.
We've been programmed almost.
Yeah. And then within your program, do you also address the reasons why people are reaching out for food when they're not hungry?
Absolutely.
Because I think that's a very big part of it.
Yeah. And a lot of times they're not even aware that they're doing it. So it's kind of cool to ask questions and help them realize on their own, oh, you're right. I'm not hungry, but I'm doing this. I didn't even know I was doing it because I'm so used to doing it. It's become a habit.
Yeah. Oh, it's so interesting. And there's so many different avenues, isn't there, to work through and begin to change those behaviors and those patterns. Yeah. Oh, I love it. So now if people wanted to get in contact with you, obviously we'll put all the links below, but where is the best place for some people, for people to get in contact with you?
That's a good question because I feel like I'm everywhere. Probably my website, free, the number 2, the letter B, coaching.com. I've got freebies on there. You can email me from there. You can find my social on there. So probably my website.
Okay, yeah, and then we can find your social on there, but we'll post them all below anyway. And Melissa, so if there was, is there anything else that you would like to say to the listeners?
Thank you. I think that the world needs to hear this message that you're sharing. So thank you for what you're doing.
Oh, that's very kind. Yeah, there's so many different types of disordered eating, and they all need to be shouted from the rooftops to be able to get people to pay attention and listen and begin to change. But then also to be able to reach out for help.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Because I think there's that stigma or that fear of, oh, if I reach out, then I'm weak, or I don't know how to do this. And that's not the case at all. Like, we're not intended to go through life alone. We need each other. And some people have had a journey and they're just a little bit ahead of you. So let them walk with you. Like, don't be afraid to ask for help ever.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, absolutely. We are here to help.
Because of what we've gone through, right? Like, I think we've made our message because we know what it's like to be in that place, and we don't want other people to struggle and suffer like we did. Because imagine if you had come alongside yourself when you were in the middle of that, your journey might not have been as painful.
Yes. Yeah. Or if you had somebody that had been through something similar, to hold your hand, to help you. Yeah. And that's what we want to do, isn't it? To be able to help and guide. Thank you, Melissa. You've been wonderful.
Thank you, as have you. I'm excited that we've connected and look forward to keeping in touch.
Yes, absolutely. So that's all for today's episode of Bulimia Sucks. So thank you for joining us, and make sure that you subscribe to the podcast on Apple iTunes so you never miss an episode. And if you haven't heard about it before, check out my book called Bulimia Sucks on Amazon to learn many different techniques to help you to begin to break through your painful bulimic behaviors. And I'd love to hear what you have to think about the book. So it'd be great if you left a review. So thank you to everybody for listening, and let us know what you think about the show, and show some love your favorite podcast by leaving us a review also on Apple Podcasts or iTunes or Spotify or wherever you may listen. So thank you for listening, and I will speak to you in the next episode.